Hey everyone, how you doing? It's Craig Campbell from Pastor Craig's Vintage Cards, and today I want to make a video about Al Kaline. I'm not going to show a whole bunch of Kaline cards, but I do want to talk about this book. I just finished reading this book, and so I just wanted to give you some insights on the great Al Kaline. It was a really good book. Really enjoyed it. A lot of information that Kaline shared, really with no one else, which was quite interesting. But Kaline, he grew up in Baltimore, and he kind of grew up on the wrong side of the tracks a little bit, as he would say. And his family wasn't really in abject poverty, but they were certainly impoverished, by the 1930s depression and into the 40s. They really struggled. And Kaline, he loved sports, and he was a really good at sports. He was good at basketball, football, and baseball. His dad would squat behind an imaginary home plate when Kaline was like 8 or 9 years old, and his dad taught him to throw a curveball and a fastball. His parents were very supportive of Kaline's athletic abilities, and really, as he got into like junior high and high school, the family kind of realized that was probably going to be Al's way out of Baltimore and out of probably a life of not poverty, but just a life of a very mundane life, probably working in a factory like his father. And Kaline even admitted that he was good at school, but he applied almost no, all of his application to life as a growing up was in sports. He just got by in school, managed to get his diploma. As he said, he kind of regrets not applying himself a little bit more academically. But Kaline was a great athlete in the Baltimore area. As I said, he played basketball in high school and was the team's leading scorer, I think, all 4 years. And he played a lot of American Legion ball. He was like 11 years old playing with the 13-year-olds. And then quickly he started playing with adults and people that had that were 20 to 25 years old. And then he got involved in the Baltimore City American Legion and the county teams, the state teams, and became quite a great player. It was interesting. I'm just going to show some cards and just keep talking, and hopefully they'll make some sense. But this is that 1961 New Scoops card, and it commemorates Al Kaline hitting 3 homers, 2 in the same inning. The interesting thing about this is if you look at the date there, this happened in 1955, so very early in Kaline's career. But in the book, Kaline talks about going to New York, to the Polo Grounds, as their team got invited as they won a big tournament. And so they got to go to New York to the Polo Grounds, and they took a tour of Yankee Stadium. And Kaline distinctly remembers that was like 1951, so he was probably 16 years old, 15. And they went to Yankee Stadium. They got to go in the clubhouse, and all the team, they just walked by. Joe DiMaggio was sitting there, but he never once looked up and acknowledged any of the kids. But the kids were just stumbling and bumbling, he said, stepping on each other, trying to get a look at the great Yankee Clipper. And the interesting thing is that Al Kaline, those 2 home runs in the same inning, he was the first one to do that since Joe DiMaggio. And Kaline talked in the book about when he was told he was the first one to do it in the American League since DiMaggio. Just a big smile came across his face as he kind of realized, hey, I'm in the big time now. And so that's kind of an interesting anecdote about this story about Kaline and DiMaggio. And Kaline remembered, he said that it was 1951, and there was a very young player in the locker room as well. Nobody paid any attention to him because he was just a kid, but that was Mickey Mantle. And Kaline talked about him and Mantle and Mays, really how Mickey and Willie and Hank they were at another level than Kaline. He talked about just that they were just far beyond anything that Al Kaline brought to the table. And he was pretty aware of where he stood in baseball, I think, which is quite interesting. He was a great player, and this here, they becoming the youngest batting champion. Al was talked about how he was never able to really live up to what he had thought himself was, what he thought he was going to do himself, and the sports writers, because he became the youngest batting champion ever, and people thought that Kaline was just going to become the next Ted Williams. And for Al, his heroes were Ted Williams and Stan Musial, and two of the greatest hitters in baseball. And so Kaline really, really modeled himself after those two players. And this here, he said, was a great, great honor to become the youngest batting champion, but it also, in a way, became something he could never live up to. In 1955, he hit 340. He was one day younger than Ty Cobb. And you can see this started in 1953. He just was a great player, and he came up and he took the world by storm and never looked back. And you can see that at the end there, Al did not see full-time action. The second year, he hit a respectful 276. And the third year, when he became a full-time starter, that's when he became the youngest batting champion. But I just love this card. And Al talked about the difficulties of being a star player on a very poor team in a league that was very much dominated by the New York Yankees. And Kaline talks about the struggles of being the face of the franchise and just the frustration with not being able to get over the top. I believe he played for 12 managers in his 22-year career. And so there was just a lot of managerial turmoil. And then there was at one point where the manager, they had a heart attack, and then they'd have an interim manager, and then the manager died in the off season, so they had to have a new manager. And so he did talk about that revolving door, and just really the fact that he was the main man on that team at such a young age. And you can see here on the back of this, his biggest thrill in baseball, and he talks about Ted Williams being the greatest hitter that he'd ever seen. And he really, really did appreciate Ted Williams. But yeah, I just love this 55 Kaline card. The one thing about Al in that book that I didn't really realize was the amount of pain and injuries that he played through. He was born with a deformity in one of his feet. He had a foot, the bone was kind of messed up, which caused his toes to not be aligned properly. And he, of course, just learned to deal with it, growing up. But then as he kept playing, it really started to cause some real problems. And they had to do bone surgery at one point and kind of realign his feet. And they had to cut part of the bone off, and he had to have a special shoe made. So yeah, he went through a lot of playing and pain throughout his career. The amount of games that he missed is unbelievable. He had broken arm, the feet problems. He just had a lot of injuries throughout his career, which is pretty amazing that he was able to bounce back. And I just love this 56 card, a young Al Kaline. And I thought this was a good card to look at as we talk about some of his injuries, because you can see him just running there, ready to score. So just a really, really cool card. I love the 56s. But again, Al, he had a really good career all through the early 60s. Played in a lot of all-star games. But the Tigers just really, really struggled. And, of course, that all started to change towards the mid-60s. Norm Cash, some of the players that he really, really liked to play with. And, Willie Horton came along. And you got to the mid-60s, and the Tigers really took off. And I think in 67, I want to say, they finished just a little bit behind the Red Sox. And Kaline almost was a Triple Crown winner that year, I believe. I'm kind of not for sure. I know Yaz was, but Kaline was awfully close that year. And probably it was one of his best years. And But 1968 came along, and yeah, the Tigers, they became the team, and of course they faced the St. Louis Cardinals in a 7-game World Series. Uh, just really was something that Kaline, he said when he came into baseball, he wanted to play 20 seasons, and he wanted to win a World Series. And he was thinking, it was never going to happen as his career went along, and especially with the Yankees' dominance, and then they just couldn't get it done. And Al was just very starting to become disappointed in the team performance. He wanted to stay in Detroit, though, and which he did, of course. But the 1968 season, they won it all, and that was one of his greatest thrills of all time, was winning that 68 World Series. He talks about that in the book after he'd retired. And this is his second year card here, the 1955 Topps. And Kaline was just so happy to win that World Series in 68. It just took a lot off of his shoulders to finally reach that pinnacle. And he was so happy with that. And then, the team, they struggled a little bit and coming back the next year, and they made the playoffs in 72. They lost to the eventual World Series champion, the Oakland A's, as the A's went on their three-peat. And just love this 55. Boy, it's a nice looking cards. And so Al, they went to the playoffs in 72 and lost to the A's. And Al started to kind of realize, he was starting to slow down that 73, 74 season. And he was awfully close to getting 3,000 hits. He thought about hanging it up, but he said, no, I'm going to play one more year and go for that 3,000 hits. And so you can see he was at 2695 after the 71 season. But Al played that the 74 season, or 74 season, and he had a lot of questions whether he should keep playing. I'll just put it that way. And he talked about facing, which really kind of surprised me in the book. He talked about they were going to be playing the California Angels, and they were going to be facing Nolan Ryan that day. And Al Kaline knew that his skills were getting so diminished that he asked out of the game. And he said in the book that is one of his greatest embarrassments, that he did not want to face Nolan Ryan at that point with Kaline's career, the way he was playing, some of the injuries he had, and Nolan Ryan's dominance. And he did not want to go 0 for 4, and he just felt that he could not catch up to Ryan's fastball. And he said that in the book, and that was really kind of surprising. But he talked about just how much he deeply, deeply regretted that, that he would actually ask out of a game to avoid facing someone. He said it's the only time that he ever did that. And then he talked about when he got his 3,000th hit, it was in Baltimore, in front of his mom and dad and his high school friends, his sisters. So it happened in Baltimore, late September. And Kaline ended up with 3,007 hits. And he ended up with 399 home runs, one short of 400. And he always did kind of wish that he would have maybe gotten that extra home run just to have that 400 number. But he said that he played the last game in Detroit, and he went 0 for 2. His shoulder was bothering him so badly that he told Ralph Houck that he didn't want to play anymore. And again, that was one of the things he said, I kind of wish that I wouldn't have done that. was a DH that day, and when Ben Ogilvy, I believe it was, came up to bat for him, the crowd just booed unmercifully. They didn't quite understand that Kaline himself had asked out. And Al said for as great as his career was, and the accomplishments he had, and the World Series wins, and the All-Star games, and just all of the experiences, he just really regrets those two things. Not facing Nolan Ryan and asking out of that last game and not really giving the fans the chance to give him a farewell. And Al Kaline was the first Detroit Tiger to have his jersey retired because Ty Cobb, of course, they didn't wear numbers then. And after Kaline retired, they retired his number 6. And then they soon followed up with Hank Greenberg, Charlie Gehringer, and some others as well had their numbers retired. But there'll never be another number 6 for the Detroit Tigers. And I really enjoyed the book, even though I was surprised that he didn't want to face Nolan Ryan because he didn't want to be embarrassed. Al was a very prideful player. I still am so glad that I got to see him play in person. He was one of those players that we just saw him play a whole lot in Milwaukee. And Al Kaline was just, I knew he was a great player, even though at the points when I saw him, you know, he was at the end of his career, obviously. But my dad and my brother, they really liked Kaline. And boy, he had a great arm. You know, nobody ran on him. He was just a great outfielder. And I really enjoyed reading this book on Al Kaline. Just a great player. A lot of inside stories about him and his interaction with teammates and opponents, and how he went about negotiating contracts. And I just come away really appreciating Al Kaline all the more, and knowing how great of a player was, and really the importance that he has to the history of baseball. So I know it's a little bit of a long video, and I just kind of wanted to share some stuff about Kaline and just how much I enjoyed this book, and I enjoy collecting Al Kaline. And yeah, the one card I didn't show you guys, which I'm really looking for, is the 1954 Topps, the rookie card for Al Kaline. I've got the 55 the second year, but I'd really like to get the rookie, and that's going to be probably on my list for Strongsville for next year, 2026, Lord willing. And I'm hoping to get that 54 Al Kaline in my collection. That really is kind of a dream card. It's not a Grail card, but it certainly is a card that I've really want to add. You know, I love these mid-50s Kalines, and to have that rookie card would just be so, boy, that would really just fill a hole in the collection and make me really happy. Alright guys, I've rambled on long enough here about Kaline. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a comment or a thumbs up, a like, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. And guys, enjoy the hobby, keep on collecting, and we will talk later.